Hello Neppers, it is me, Wild Neptune. This is going to be the video on the upcoming 5-star RGB selector, what heroes are good, what heroes are not, and which one you, the viewer, should pick. Find this helpful or interesting, a like, comment, and subscription are always appreciated. Anyway, a lot to go over today, so let's get going. Okay, unlike the artifact video, I do have a tier list that I made. So look at this very briefly. I'll go over the tiers and then I'll go into the game and talk about some of the individual units. So at the top here, we have PvP meta / PvE core. This simply means that the units, well, either they're the top tier heroes you can get from this list in PvP, or they are very important for a lot of PvE content that cannot easily be replaced or just cannot be replaced by any other units. Next tier down, we have strong PvP or versatile PvE. Just right off the bat here, none of these units, except maybe like Fire Lily sometimes, are really used for PvE. So this whole list is basically just really strong PvP units. Next one down, we have good units, but have some issues. So these are units that are generally considered to be good, but they have a couple of flaws that might hold them back. Below that, we have niche PvP or replaceable / narrow PvE. So these might be heroes that are good in some PvE content, but can be replaced or maybe only good in one thing, and maybe that one thing isn't always something you're going to be doing. Or in PvP, maybe also only good against one type of thing, and you might have other options there too. Below that, you have don't pick these. So for whatever reason, some of these heroes are just free, some of them just aren't that good, just don't consider these heroes except for aesthetic reasons or maybe collection purposes. And then right below that, the biggest one is can't pick. These are heroes that are either too new or are limited / collab heroes and just will not be in the pool. So let's go and talk about some of these units individually and why they might be good choices for you. So a number of these units I do have built up, so just like the artifact video, going to go class by class. I'll show you the ones that I do have built so you get an idea on what you want to expect from them overall. And warriors are up first. So Abigail is too new, not in the pool. So the first one we'll get to is going to be Shu. Now, my Shu is kind of Pepega, if I'm honest with you. But Shu is one of the stronger counter heroes right now in the game for World Arena. Also in Guild Wars, very strong in Guild Wars defense, mainly because of how much damage she can push out with her kit, with her S1 into S2. You really want to have counter set on her. If you're newer and you have her, yes, you can run it on speed set, but counter is by far the best option. Kind of maybe want to have penetration set too for more extra damage. I just don't have penetration pieces that are that good I can put onto her, well, ones that really fit her. HP scaling, stuff like that. So just a very strong unit to put on your Guild Wars defense team and to pick in World Arena. After that, we have Alexia, who is kind of like the anti-Shu in a way. Just like Shu, she does really want a different set in injury, but again, if you're newer and you have speed set and you want to run into that, that's also okay, although I think most people would say probably inferior. She's also a strong World Arena and Guild Wars pick. She's not as easy to use in World Arena because with all of like the debuffs and stuff running around, Unbuffable is really strong against Alexia. Don't get me wrong, it's strong against Shu too, but Shu can still do her S1 into S2 even when she has Unbuffable. Alexia just kind of loses like a lot of her kit when Unbuffable is in play, so you gotta watch out for that. Also, Alexia is much better on Guild Wars offense because of her defense break on the S1, and she has a strip on the S3, and she also has an injury to help take care of those shoes and those APOC Ravis that you've seen on a lot of defenses. So definitely worth the pickup if you're worried about those things. the last real warrior that I think belongs in the higher tiers that I have built will be the Hawk. Now, this gear is kind of bad. Okay, let's be fair here. However, you don't really need insane gear on the Hawk. You'll notice that I have 55 crit chance. Do you know what? This is actually too high because of his built-in 50% bonus crit chance on his attack and hit chance too. The crit chance is for the S1 and the S3, hit chance only in S3, and this means he's basically a dedicated Savior Aiden killer. So if you're a newer player, and I assume that most people who need advice from these videos are going to be newer players, he might be really only option to kill maybe the most busted free-to-play unit the game has ever seen in Savior Aiden. And for that, he might be worth a pickup. So very easy gear requirement in my opinion. You don't even have to be like 270. Like, this is actually kind of slow by, I'd say, the standards of like somebody in my tier. But like 260-ish, maybe even 250 for like lower tier players, it might be okay, right? Of course, you know, more speed with some damage is always better. However, accessible unit that I think most people who want to start getting into PvP can use. So there are a couple of other warriors though that I do want to touch up on. Of course, Shermia and Sigrid, even though they're very good for PvE content, they are available for free. So you should not pick them. The other ones I want to talk about here are going to be Fire Ken. It's going to be the first one. And Fire Ken basically does one thing very well. And that is Ancient Inheritance. Now, as the recording of this video, Ancient Inheritance, well, just ended. And we won't be getting another one for a little bit now. Also, even though historically, Smilegate has not done this, maybe they'll change Ancient Inheritance, maybe make Warriors not totally busted. Because let's be fair here. Warriors have been the most busted thing in Ancient Inheritance since, well, forever. And if that ever changes, that means Ken is suddenly really worthless. Now, I would say that if you really want to carry your guild in Ancient Inheritance and be like, oh, look at me, conquering this PvE content for everybody here, right? Then yeah, Ken is probably okay. But if you're in like a very strong guild, unless that guild is like wants to beat the final boss like 10 times, I don't know what the record is, right? Then Ken is kind of a luxury more than anything else, but he is a luxury with a pretty decent bonus when you can use him. The other hero I want to talk about here is Green Euphine. And if this was a little while ago, she'd actually be higher on the list. However, her role has been largely supplanted by Jacko, who is a limited unit that basically, well, like I said, fills her same role, at least in PvP, which was be a cleave unit with Zeo. Euphine can still be used in the Endless Labyrinth, so she has some gimmick where you can basically run Euphine and just have it be like invincible and clear out like all of lab, like normal lab with her, even at like minus 50 morale because of the way her kit works. I'm pretty sure it still works. Now, is this worth doing? Probably not, no. But it's something you can do. Now we have Red Lilius, so she really has the role right now as counter to Lua, and as a warning for that, you do need this artifact, Ancient Dragon's Legacy, otherwise it doesn't really function as that counter per se, but all around, really decent knight, has been seen in some Guild Wars defense teams recently. Also not that bad in some PvE content, just a all-around good tech choice for some PvP. Another one we'll look at here too is going to be Senya. So Senya right here, unfortunately, I am rocking a plus 15 artifact, but Senya has been for a while now a very strong option on your Guild Wars defense, often paired with Shu. Also very good in World Arena for some anti-cleave, and also some other tech options against things like maybe Karina and things like that. Lifesteal, I think, is considered to be the, upper tier set if you can do it. My attack is kind of low, to be honest. However, speed set, stuff like that works just fine. Some people run effectiveness over ER. So just a lot of ways to build this unit. And because she doesn't want any crit chance or crit damage, she could be both kind of difficult to use, but also, I would say that you get a lot of gear that just doesn't have any of this on it, especially on speed set or lifesteal set, and you might be, surprised on how many pieces just happen to be things you can put on Senya. Yoha is another knight we're gonna look at here, and this is mine right here. So yes, revenge set. Do I recommend doing this? Probably not. I just kind of had this gear, and whatever. Let's put it on her. So Yoha is in an interesting spot right now because of all of the things like LRK, ML landing stuff going around. Yoha, with her big burst S3, is a pretty powerful pick against those units. Now, she is really hampered by injury, and there are some meta injury units that are going around, but if you can avoid that, Yoha can turn into a win condition for a lot of teams here. So I would also be wary here because both Arrowell and Lesser Crow are, I would say, overall better knights than Yoha right now. But that doesn't mean Yoha isn't good. It's just that you probably won't be picking her as much if you have those first two options. Now, I do want to quickly go over some other knights too. So this is Charlotte. She's just kind of holding gear for me right now. Really okay in some PvE. In PvP, decent against things like ML Landy because she does have that 100% crit when she doesn't miss. Whether or not it's a good idea to AoE a ML Landy team is debatable, but there is also that. I would say also though that her, unlike Senya, who wants like either effectiveness or ER and no crit chance or crit damage, Fire Charlotte, because she is more restricted to her set where lifesteal is generally considered to be a much better option, I think. And the fact that she's kind of much more stat hungry overall, I do think that she is harder to build than Senya is. You have Ilion too. Now mine isn't geared. I'd say her biggest thing holding her back is that she just dies a little bit too fast. Once she's picked in the right spots, though, she's really, really good. This is a blue Crow. Again, he's just holding gear. I don't use him that much. He's really kind of just a second Yoha for Guild Wars only, because you can't take Yoha to both fights. Sometimes you might want to also have a blue Crow to do the same thing in the second fight. We also have Tywin here. So some people might read his passive, I think, and say, oh, he can be used for anti-stun. I'm telling you right now, no, do not pick Tywin. I spent an entire week testing him out. He is just not good. Now, when we get to the Thieves, we have a couple of interesting choices here. Of course, Para and Ran, who I don't have built. I do a Para build. I'm kind of slow, but, whatever here. The use cases for them are going to be pretty different. Ran is definitely more of an initiator for a cleave team, while Para can be. She's much more common as anti-cleave, and there's stuff like, say, anti-Athletica, things like that, especially things that can't deal with her debuffs here, like Restrict, and also cannot be buffed, which are pretty useful to have against certain compositions. Basically require almost the same gear. Parrot are usually built with more effectiveness. Ran, since he has Soul Burn, Ignore ER, doesn't really need that. I think at the higher end, both of them want damage. On Ran, it's required. On Para, it's not. You can just run like more bulk and no damage stats, more effectiveness, stuff like that. So definitely, I'd say in terms of gearing, much harder for newer players. Even though my alt account, not that old, does actually have, not a half bad pair, I think, for how old the account is. So maybe just get lucky with a lot of speed gear and can run those units. I would definitely be worried though, even though I know they are higher up on the tier list, they do have the caveat at being more difficult to gear. Another unit that's high on the tier list is going to be Celine. So Celine is interesting here, where I don't really use her that often. Mine's kind of more of a, more sustainy type build. There have been builds in the past that have used lifesteal over the speed stat. I just don't have any lifesteal gear I can put onto her. Otherwise, maybe I go in that direction. So not really a pure anti non-attack skill, more of like a slow punish unit. This is probably not the way to go on her. I think if you're newer and you're using her, you just want all damage. Of course, having this at a higher level is always better. Plus 15 is kind of copium, to be honest with you. But yeah, I definitely think when you get higher up in like arena or stuff like that, she's much harder to use. However, early on, she is pretty good. Now, I will be honest here too. If it wasn't for the skin, I honestly probably wouldn't even have her geared up. But this skin is just too good to not use her. I also want to give a little mention here to Kaeya. So mine's not geared right now. Before he was the classic counterattack, some resist, anti-cleave unit. Definitely not as good now though, especially with Veronica out, that just kind of destroys this type of unit for anti-cleave. So it's debatable whether or not he's even worth it anymore. I don't really see much use for him where I am, but maybe lower down you will. And we also have Kaeya. So Kaeya is a strong burst damage dealer with things like, say, paired with Ahmed in World Arena. That team is very helpful because of the way Kaeya's kit works. Kaeya is also one of the only real DPS units that are good in the Carcanis Hell Raid fight. And this is notable because unlike the other fights, Carcanis really only has very few units that are really, really good in that fight, and Kaeya is one of them. So the other ones happen to be Shu, and another one, which will be a surprise, we'll get to a little bit later. But Kaeya, if you run that burst comp, or want to run that burst comp with Ahmed, she might be an okay pick, but again, kind of niche in her applications here. Finally, we also have Green Violet. So Green Violet is in a weird spot where I'd say he's not super good as he progressed further into the game, but early on, he is like an MVP level unit. A lot of players will not have ways to deal with him efficiently lower down like they do in like higher up tiers. So even like a I guess Spectre Teneria does exist, right? But even lower down, like in just normal flag arena, he can be a huge nuisance to some players, especially when they don't have like the gear level to deal with even like a kind of Pepega one like this one. Like mine isn't, really good if I'm being honest with you here. Yes, good option, but just be prepared for him to fall off kind of quickly, I would say. Now, the final thief I want to talk about here is going to be Green Vildred, who I do have. He's just in the waiting room. Vildred is a powerful overall hero for your cleave teams, especially when you need an AoE follow-up, or maybe things to like, say, I don't know, push a Caval, something like that. Now, his real power is from this imprint here, see, speed imprint, and to get triple S, you need 6 copies. So 5 original, and then, like 1 original, then 5 more to get triple S. This is kind of a big ask, especially if you're needing advice from this video, so I'm assuming you only have like none, or 1. But you gotta start somewhere. Now, would I use the selector as a starting point? Probably not, no. However, if you're at like double S, and I don't know, maybe you don't really need like any other hero from the list. Maybe you already have all the top tier ones. All the ones are like, this would be nice, but you really want to get that triple S Vildred, then maybe then you can pick it. But I would probably not pick it up just for like 1 copy. Rangers up next, and Rangers have 2 top tier picks and 1 okay pick. One of the top tier picks is going to be, of course, Lua, the Scourge of World Arena. So you notice that my Lua is not geared. And you might be wondering why she's not geared, because she's by far, at least pound for PvP, the strongest unit you can get from Selector. Here lies the problem. She is so strong in her role that she's just banned all the time. Banned so much that I don't have mine geared up anymore. And I don't even pre-ban her. It is just that because I myself don't really run in the style as often that I can pick her, I much rather have my opponent pick her. And I have some, ways that I fight her. I definitely think that if you want the strongest unit possible, this is one that you pick. Just be aware that you might not get to actually play her that often because the fact that she is just that powerful. It doesn't also help that she really wants Guiding Light. There are some builds, which I only have 2 copies of. There are some builds and some things you can use her own artifact. Septemporal Fan, I think it is. So that is also an option if you want to go that way. She's also kind of Mola. I didn't really talk about this, but she doesn't really need a lot of Molas at all. So she is a kind of a low investment unit as long as you have the gearing to put onto her. The other top tier unit, though, that's going to be on the list is Alexia, who is just for the exact opposite reason as Lua. Alexia is one of the best units for PvE content, especially when paired with another unit, Tamarind, who we'll talk about when we get to Soul Weavers. So this is my Alexia that I run for my Banshee one-shot. When I do her on Queen in Nightmare Raid, I swap her boots out, and then she works just fine there. So Song of Stars, just okay stats overall for the PvE content. And why is she so good in PvE? Well, this is because she can fully reset the cooldowns on a unit with her S2. This means that Tamarind's long cooldown is, well, goodbye. Also, she has a unbuffable, a strip, and a defense break on the S3, and a bonus defense break also on the S1. So, very helpful key debuffs and mechanics for a lot of PvE content. And this unit is not replaceable by any other unit in the game. And don't say Rima. Now, I kind of lied by saying there's only one other unit that's okay. There are a few ranges that are decent. One is going to be Flan. This is one of the few units that I actually don't have right now. So Flan is a cleave unit. I would say that Flan cleave is kind of weak right now. A lot of it is because her speed is kind of lower compared to other openers. And she is just like super beaten by immunity. If the enemy team has immunity, then Flan is totally worthless. I will also say that she does need her own artifact to function. So if we don't have her own artifact, then Flan is also kind of a lost cause. We also have Command Model Leica, who is a pick that kind of comes in and out. For a while, like maybe a year ago, at this point, she was a top tier unit, but people adapted, and now she's probably not as impactful right now, but does have potential to come back. We also have Pavel. I would say also kind of like Green Leica. He was also a unit that could be like top tier a long way back. He's still probably okay, just not a first option, maybe not even a second option, just like something that can work in places. Now we get to the mages. So mages are interesting because a lot of their power in PvP come from either their ability to hold things like, say, Tag House Ancient Book, or things like Abyssal Crown. And in PvE, they have a lot of neat applications for certain content. So the only one that's going to be in the top tier, though, is Politis. And this is because of how versatile of a unit in PvP, especially in World Arena, that she is. So it can be used against Cleave as like an anti-Cleave, much like this one is, or maybe even in Cleave, not only to prevent your opponent from, well, picking her, but also because a lot of anti-Cleave also has non-attack skills. So because of this, some people actually have 2 Politises built. And I actually think I myself am going to do that if I pull a second Politis. Now, if you're in the state where you're considering building 2 Politis, you don't need this video, this guide, right? But if you do need it, then I would say it's not worth it, probably for you, where I'm assuming where you are in your account journey. It's just that for me, it is something that I would honestly consider doing. Just be warned though with Politis, even though she is a very good hero in World Arena, she's one of those heroes too that really tests your game and drafting knowledge, in my opinion. Because drafting a Politis in the wrong spot, or even not picking her in some spots, can just lose you matches. So she is kind of a skill testing hero. But anyway, let's move on to the next hero, which will be Arya. So Arya is a pretty decent hero right now. She, against certain comps in World Arena, she just instantly wins if your Arya is built correctly. In Guild Wars 2 and also Arena offense, pretty strong for those slower teams. Now, there are a number of Guild Wars defenses, especially the ones with the counter, like APOC, Robbie, stuff like that, that are particularly strong to some Arya teams, because that APOC build can kind of out-sustain Arya a little bit, especially ones that kind of lower on damage, like I am, because I have to push some more ER for my build. But in general, very strong against certain compositions. The issue with Arya is, I think more so than any other unit on this list, except maybe like Ran Para, she is the hardest one to build. This Arya, I believe, is 442 gear score. And I think it's only just like very good. Not even like amazing. There's definitely things like I can improve on it to get her to be better. It's just that that's how nuts her gear has to be. And not only that, you also really want a whole team that's kind of built around her too. So very high investment to get the most mileage out of her. But she is a unit that I like a lot for a couple of reasons. Now, some other units here I also want to touch on kind of briefly. One of them is going to be Blue Luca, if I can find it. Here she is. So now, personally, Blue Luca is one of my favorite characters in the entire game. I'm really a fan of the Tsundere archetype. She's kind of holding this artifact right now just for some more CP. Blue Luca, I think, is kind of underrated for PvE content. And why? Well, early on, if you really want to, use her for Wyvern. She's pretty good because she has defense break on the S3 and also on the S1. In Red Expo, when it's up, I still use her in that for much of the same reasons. She's also one of the 3 units that are DPSs that are good for Carcanis. Like I said, you have Shu, you have Kisei, I guess Ran also is a really good unit too, and then you also have Blue Luca, who is also pretty good for Carcanis, and I run her in that also. I think it's underrated when a unit can be used in a lot of PvE content and fill the same slot in like a lot of stuff. I think this stock goes up a little bit. Also, this is maybe less important, but Blue Luca also has very good camp morale for a unit that is as strong as she is in PvE. So if you run normal raids a lot and just want to get those, like, you know, tokens for, say, I don't know, chance for the Mola or Artifact Charm, stuff like that, Blue Luca is not only, one, strong in the content, but also is going to help you do it a little bit more and get more resources. Not the biggest bonus ever, but something worth considering. Now, you might ask, why isn't Teneria also in that tier? She basically covers many of the same boxes that Luca does. Good in a certain hunt, good in a certain expedition, also good for a certain boss, good for PvE. This is mainly because Teneria herself, even though I also like her a lot, has other replacements like Fireball, if you don't want to use the cute girl, or just like other fire units that AoE in general can, kind of be used in place of her. So that's why I think Blue Luca is just a tier above where Teneria is. And finally, we have the Soul Weavers. And this is where I suspect most people are going to be choosing their hero from. This is actually where I am choosing my hero from. But anyway, let's go with the first hero, which is Tamarind. So Tamarind is the best PvE-centric hero on the entire list. And I will say, if you're a new player and you do not have Tamarind, she should probably be the one you pick up if you do not plan to get it from story summons. Even if you do plan to get it from story summons, you know what? You're either saving your bookmarks and your story summon opening if you get it from the ticket, or you can just, pull another unit instead that you might need or want from the story banner also, as long as they have a story banner. But Tamarind, very strong in PvE. Basically, a must-have. Can you do PvE without Tamarind? Yes, people have found ways to do it. Would you want to? No. Tamarind is so strong that when I consider making alt accounts, like the one I'm playing on, well, not right now, but the one I have, I do it when a Tamarind banner is up, so I can pull this unit first. That's how good I think Tamarind is with PvE content. So what we have is also going to be Destina. So a very strong PvP-centric healer because of her built-in ER bonus here, her revive and everything like that. Now, this Destina is actually kind of bad. I just don't really have a lot of gear because, I'll be honest, I don't use her as much as I should. So her gear is kind of, like hand-me-downs of hand-me-downs, but just a solid anchor for a lot of PvP teams, especially really early on. Roana has also risen to much prominence in the realm of PvP, mainly because of all the counterattack stuff going on, like, Emma Landy. Also has some neat applications too in PvE, so one of the few healers that can actually do a lot in both types of content. So yeah, Roana is going to be a pretty decent pickup. And the other Soul Weaver, that I don't have, that I am probably going to pick, is going to be Sharoon. So, Sharoon, definitely more of like a slow burn character, has that venom with the injury, can really hurt things like, say, Meteor Calric. I'd say a little bit hard to use right now that she was, because like Candy definitely pushed a lot of things aside, but a very fun and interesting hero, I think, in the game. I also, honestly, I really like her design, and I kind of really like her serpent motif, everything like that going on. So, that's who I'm going to pick. Now, I do think that she is inferior to the first three soldiers that I mentioned, but is still a good unit. And once again, here is the full list right here. If you have any questions about any of these units or any ones I have not gone over, just leave them in a comment below. Remember, you don't have to choose your hero until you actually open up the book. However, the selector does expire, so do it before that happens. Anyway, hope you found this helpful. I am Wild Neptune. It's been a good one. Nep out.